Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. The title of the book is Dear Princess Grace, Dear Betty, the memoir of a romantic feminist. The author is the feminist, social critic, as well as passionate advocate, Alida Brill, and she's my guest today. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me again, Ronnie. It's wonderful to be here.
It's lovely. I love the book.
Thank you.
What I love is hearing about people, their lives, what helped make them what they are, and how you lived through the whole thing. I mean, I loved starting with your parents, who sounded incredible, who died very old. How old were they?
My mother died in my father's arms exactly 1 month to the day on Friedan's birth and death date, 1 month before she was 101. And my father died 3 months and 15 days later.
Isn't that
because
something?
he couldn't possibly go on without her.
And they were very much in love.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
So interesting. So you grew up with the fantasies. I wanted to be a nurse, a Navy nurse. I grew up during the Second World War. But you wanted to be an actress.
And Princess Grace.
And Princess Grace.
I wanted to be both an actress, a princess, and in control. And I often think that I want, as I grew older and confessed my love of Princess Grace and the fact that I actually wrote a letter to her, I think I wanted to believe that this little girl wanted to be Princess Grace because she was a princess and a working actress, but no, not really the case. Of course, she never worked again once she married Rainier. He wouldn't let her.
Yeah, yeah.
Wouldn't let her.
So then but all of your life, you also always looked for romance.
I was obsessed with romance.
Well, is that because you had such a good example with your parents?
I'm not sure, because they certainly were not happy with this obsession of mine. And in fact, I lied to my mother when I wanted to write the letter to Princess Grace and said I wanted to collect stamps because my mother did not want me to be so obsessed. I think it had something to do with living under the shadow or within proximity of Hollywood. I grew up in a Southern California town that was about an hour up the freeway from Hollywood, and Hollywood influenced us. I write in the book about when Marilyn Monroe committed suicide. It was an international event, but in Lakewood, Long Beach, California, it was a neighborhood event. And I think a lot of it was the influence of Hollywood, and you were right there, and you could go anytime, and you see the Hollywood sign and the Grauman's Chinese, and it was really small potato stuff in the 1950s compared to the Hollywood of today. But I don't think my parents influenced me. They were a great love affair, but they weren't fantasy people. They were both people that had suffered greatly, great losses. I think it was the influence of movies.
Isn't that interesting?
And being sick.
Yeah.
Because I spent so much time being ill, and they allowed me to watch movies on TV.
Oh, that may have been different.
Yeah.
So you've lived an entire life with a chronic illness.
I got sick at 6 with probably what was rheumatic fever, and then, as you know from the last book, at 12 is when the autoimmune stuff started.
Yeah.
So I retreated, I think, into these worlds of romance and fantasy.
Well, I can understand that. What
else?
else?
As an escape.
Total. Yeah.
And then, of course, I become friends with Betty Friedan. As soon as I moved to New York, when I was just barely 30, I'm not sure Friedan and I would have become such close friends if the book, which was called The Book in my life, which my mother read when I was still a little girl. So The Feminine Mystique wasn't really my book, it was hers, and it changed her life. And she went back to work. She hadn't worked since I was born. She'd worked before the war and through the war. And the book, was so important that my father would hold it aloft, and he would say in his wonderful, deep voice, "If it's not in the book, I don't have to worry about it. If it is in the book, I do." And he still carried his Southern accent, although he was very liberal, left-wing actually. So that book, The Feminine Mystique, liberated my mother, not just from housework, which she abhorred, and I write about how much she abhorred it, but also from sadness and grief and depression. And so I grew up with the notion that Friedan was such a positive force. So when I met her, I loved her.
But did it come, the thing about Friedan was it extended the community. So you had support. It was, it was like the consciousness raising group said, you feel the same as I feel? Oh, then maybe I'm not so wrong.
And Betty had terrible asthma. I don't know if you knew that about Betty. She suffered bouts of debilitating asthma. She also had to take steroids, as I have my whole life. And that was a tremendous bond between Friedan. And I remember in Sag Harbor one night, she was always so generous about my staying there. I was having a very bad, I happened to have respiratory stuff with this, and she just pushed the Kleenex box, and she didn't say a word.
Yeah.
So there was this bond of illness as
But
well as
how did you first meet her?
I'm not sure. I either met her through Cynthia Fuchs Epstein or through Linda Wolf. And it's unclear to me, but it was right away. I met her right away. And it might have been at a meeting. I don't really know.
But you did a lot of work about women, studying women.
Well,
in
and
between.
I was running a program.
Yeah.
When I moved to New York City from Berkeley, California, it was to run a program on gender at the Russell Sage Foundation. So I was in the world of funding projects. And I was very active as a feminist.
And you'd already
And writing.
And you'd already been married once.
Twice.
Twice before.
Yeah.
Did you?
This is romantic feminism.
Yeah, who was the beautiful, the very handsome, dark-haired man?
Left-wing man.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a college sweetheart.
Was he the second marriage?
First.
The first.
And then the second one was also in politics. Actually, we met. We met, I think, in Friends of the Farm Workers, and then we went on the road for George McGovern. We went on the road together for George McGovern, an ill-fated campaign, but we were on the road for McGovern. My second husband and I
were
very political men.
But they were first romantic attachments.
Very romantic.
Yeah, that didn't turn out too well.
No. And then I had my third marriage, which I write in the book, we'll just mention briefly, which I call Not a Fairy Tale. And the interesting thing about that marriage is that I was old enough, and he was much, much older, as we know. I was old enough to know better, but I still couldn't let it go, Ronnie.
Do you still look for the prince?
No.
No.
And no. But it's been a long, hard road, and that's the last chapter of the book where I call we need a slow love movement. We've had a slow food movement. We need a slow love movement.
Which means what?
It means it's not that jittery, oh, I'm in love, but that we learn someone. We learn their contours, and we don't expect them to be Prince Charming. And when I sit in the diner in my neighborhood and I see little girls, 5 and 6, playing with all their plastic crap, their Barbie stuff, with the princess and the coach and the horses, and I think we've not moved that far beyond this, have we? We've not moved beyond the princess bit. And so in that last chapter, I talk about the importance of that, letting it go, and learning that equality in a relationship can still be love and can still be romantic. And of course, Friedan never had a problem with romance and feminism.
She liked it. Right.
And she wanted to love and to be loved.
And
that eluded her, as you know.
So
eluded her.
You had Betty Friedan and I had Bella Abzug.
And they didn't always love each other.
It was always
and I
such
loved
a
Bella
complicated-
too.
Yeah.
And I adored Bella.
Yeah.
And she was good to me.
Yeah.
Bella was good to me too.
She was, they were both such major personages. But what I'm interested in is, Friedan came to her book from her own experience, living through it. It wasn't a theory, it was an experience and a discovery, right? Then we have some books that are really theory, written by people who haven't really come to it from a living experience.
And haven't lived the activism.
Yeah.
And remember that Betty, like Bella, they both come from civil rights backgrounds and advocating for civil rights. And I think the thing about Betty is that she understood that she was miserable and unhappy, and from that misery, and also hating housework, and understanding that it really ought to be paid, whoever was doing it, right, and board and all that stuff. from that, she then wrote a book that had a lot of theory in it, but she didn't start with a theoretical foundation. She started with what's going on here. And of course, it starts at her Smith reunion, where she was asked to write a question, to do a questionnaire, and the responses from her
We're so similar to how
sisters,
she
as
felt.
it were, she realized, wait a minute, everyone's home and miserable. What's gone wrong? And so that's where we get the famous line, the problem without a name.
But go back to when you said that both Betty and Bella, for instance, came with a already civil
just-
rights thing.
Community action.
You came from that too. Your father was very liberal.
My father was very liberal, and his family, Jewish family, Jews in the South,
Yeah.
they stood against what was then called the color line. And when I was a little girl, my father sat me down, and it was when Bella was a civil rights lawyer, and with the hat, and
Yeah.
and he sat me down and he said, "You could be her."
Oh.
That's what my father wanted me to be. He wanted me to be Bella Abzug.
So
Wear
cute.
hats, I was,
Yeah.
he was Jewish, she was Jewish, I was Jewish, we were going to do this, And his admiration of Bella, when my mother got to meet Betty Friedan, it was one of the great moments of her life. But when I introduced my father to Bella, that was it. And of course, I organized a rapprochement of these two great women.
Yeah.
One fireworks day, one fireworks night. I think the thing,
That was a
Ronnie,
great scene.
Yeah.
Sitting in there.
Yeah.
What is it? The
Adirondack chairs
Adirondack chairs.
overlooking the bay and the Hamptons and watching Boys Harbor fireworks. And I had managed with conspirators that neither one of them knew the other was going to be there. And then we left them alone. But I was with Betty at Bella's funeral, and Betty was deeply upset. They had grown old together in a way, except Bella was taken so much earlier. But the thing I think that joined them, that people often forget, is that they were both the daughters of Jewish merchants. Bella's father was a kosher butcher.
with the slogan of "Live and let live." He was a butcher.
Yeah, and
Cutting up the meat.
Yeah, he was exactly. And Betty's father was a Peoria jeweler. But the thing that they bonded over, of course, was the state of Israel.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that divided feminists in the world and women's rights people. But at the end of the day, the allegiance to Zionism, you see, that it wasn't a form of racism, that they hated each other and they fought. And then when they go to those UN decade meetings, and there was this kind of bond, an ethnic bond, that was touching.
In the book also, you talk about fairness and unfairness, in that you really learned that from the chronic illness.
Yeah.
That was so interesting to me. What does that mean?
I learned that life isn't fair, and there are things that happen to people that they have no control over. And from that understanding that at a very young age, I would never be well. I somewhere had this little hope that I was going to be well, but I knew I wasn't going to be well. And my parents' commitment to make me understand that wasn't the end of the world, and that I ought to be looking at other people whose lives were much worse than mine. So in a way, they were tough. They were kind of tough on me, and they didn't. What's the word that I'm looking for? They didn't give in to my whining. There was, in fact, when I would, kind of do the boo-hoos, I couldn't do a sleepover and I couldn't do this, my father would say, "Would you care for a piece of cheese with that wine?" So there was great love, great toughness, and also get yourself together. There are people in far worse shape than you are.
It did a very good job.
And the feminism really comes from my father as well as my mother, because he saw his mother, 2 aunts, and his sister go down the drain with the Southern requirements of what a lady was, what a lady had to be.
When I worked at Ms., there was a woman at Simmons College, I think, who did a study of successful women and the importance of having a very supportive father. It's interesting, I remember
My
that.
father was as strong a feminist as my mother. They were a team. Friedan, as you know, in The Feminine Mystique, dedicates the feminine mystique to the new women and
And
to the
men,
new men.
right.
And they were that couple because my mother read the book. My father was working 2 jobs. You know, he owned nightclubs, he owned bars, he tended bar. I mean, he did what he needed to do. It wasn't what he had intended, but it's the way life turned out for him. And he was working very hard. At one point, he was working 2 jobs. I write about it. My mother got a good job, and she said, "That's it. You're not going to work anymore." Well, he'd worked from the time he was 14 or something. And he said, well, and she said, "Oh, no, this is the way it's going to be." So they really believed that Friedan was right. You know, and Friedan writes in that book that men
Sure.
are having heart attacks and all of that pre-women working stuff. So,
So they
yeah.
did a very good job with you, because you certainly have pursued very interesting things, been very important, but also have lived with this chronic illness with great success.
And I think
hate
the
to say that.
lesson of this is that they weren't easy.
Yeah.
They weren't easy. And it wasn't a fairy tale childhood, but it was a real childhood. And the other thing is that my mother, as you know from the last book, always stood up to male doctors who potentially could have harmed me. And she wouldn't let that happen.
Good.
No, she wouldn't let
So
that
let's go back to Betty. Betty played a very important role, and she was more than just an author. She was an organizer.
Yes, she was.
So was Bella. Well, they all were, actually. When you look at them all, if we're looking at the 3, you know, Friedan, Steinem, and Abzug, who would get together to form, did they all do together with the political caucus?
Well, Betty was always in danger of being thrown out, and she was often thrown out because she couldn't control her temper, and she was then excluded. She was punished by exclusion, and I write in the book.
But Bella had a terrible temper.
Oh, but not as bad as Betty's. Bella's temper was volcanic, but it was about issues, if you remember. She would blow up because you didn't, you know. But Betty took it personally. She would become angry in ways that people, because she would say things that were wrong and inappropriate to people. And
was
Bella
she
was a
more
little
worried about her standing than the other 2? Was
I
she
think-
more basically insecure?
I think she was lonely.
What?
Lonely.
Yeah.
I think there was a deep loneliness in her. And also there was, what do we call it when someone starts an institution? Founder syndrome. Betty had founder syndrome because she felt that she started the movement. And in many ways she did. I mean, that was the first big rock out there in terms of a publication. And damn it, Ronnie, she wanted to be the mother of it all.
Yeah.
She felt she was, as I write, she felt she was Susan B. She might be wearing leopard print slacks and stiletto heels, but she felt that she was the mother of it all. And when she didn't feel that she would be properly
Respected.
attributed, accredited with that,
yeah.
respected. She had little meltdowns, not so little. But I also have great compassion for the fact that she was taking steroids, she was taking inhaled steroids, and, you know, it clouds one's judgment and problems with impulse. Betty, however, the rage that Betty had always impressed me. Because when my mother was angry, and my mother could be very angry, I saw her anger as something that came from powerlessness. And Betty's anger, while it wasn't pretty, I saw it as a woman giving herself permission to be angry and clear the room or not. And I thought, wow.
Did she recover quickly?
Oh, and she'd come and ask for your forgiveness. And that to me was one of
Was the saving grace?
Well, and endearing.
Yeah.
Here is the mother of it all,
Yeah.
if you will, at least for me, because she was in my life as a name and a literary reality. And then she'd come, you know, she'd knock on the door the next morning after she'd stormed out of a dinner party, and she'd say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," you know. And how could you not love her? Well, there were people who didn't, but I surely did.
She was a second mother in a funny way?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when I was so ill, and I hid that from my mother, because my mother was 42 when I was born. Betty was younger, obviously. Of course, Betty died first. Betty really stood by me, came to the hospital, and later when she got sick, it was very much, for me, she was a mother.
It's always funny when you think the 3 of them were very conscious of their appearance. Betty was certainly conscious of her appearance.
Her jewelry,
Right. And her clothes.
her clothes,
And-
her shoes.
Yeah. And she wasn't beautiful.
Never.
But she was something about her, the way she moved and sat on it. I remember seeing her sitting on a couch And she actually, I mean, I thought she really looked sexy. And, you know, do you know what
I'm
I'm
so
saying?
glad you brought that up, because one of the things I so admired about Betty is that she wasn't pretty in a traditional way. She had terrible battles with weight, something I certainly can sympathize with, but she was undeterred in her search for romance and validation from men. And she thought she deserved to be loved, to be cherished, to be courted, to have love affairs, and good for her.
Yeah,
good for her.
absolutely.
And I think from the beginning, if you look back at the feminine mystique now, so many years, and 10 years since Betty died. She died 10 years ago this year. She's been gone 10 years. The seeds for her other great book, The Fountain of Age, and the whole dissection of how evil ageism is, actually they're in the beginnings of that thinking are in the feminine mystique. And I think about ageism, if I can shift just a little on this.
Oh, definitely.
I think of ageism in this whole second, third wave stuff with the younger feminists.
Let's talk about the second wave. I mean, do you feel you were in a part of the women's movement that's over?
Well, apparently, if you ask the young ones,
I don't understand.
You know, throw your mother under the bus is what I feel sometimes.
Who named it the second wave? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I fought it, and now I don't fight it. But I think of us as a continuous stream of history that begins with suffrage. And now the young women are doing something else. But the bitterness that they have toward us, that they say second wavers and they're third wavers, and I don't know what the very young millennials are going to say they are, but I'm worried about fighting over names instead of issues.
Well, also, I think the discovery of being a feminist and the discovery of different things is a continuous thing. But it also goes back.
Yeah.
I mean, I have two daughters who were professionals. One is a lawyer, and the other was a producer in television news, who stayed home with their kids.
Right.
And now they're starting to look for jobs again.
Right.
And some of them, both of them, they feel a little guilty that they were home.
But
they're under that pressure.
Right. Right.
And then my granddaughter, Sophie, just by the time I was reading your book, calls me from her college and says, "Can you tell me about Betty Friedan?"
Oh, I'll send her a copy of the book.
She's a freshman. She was a freshman at Kent. So it's so interesting. It's a continuous thing. It's not a new thing.
What I remembered is...
Maybe we're getting a little expanded in our views.
Yeah. Well, when I remember when women's literature was first being taught, I couldn't wait to read the older women's works, and whether it was Susan B. Anthony or learning the horror that, you know, there were these hidden women we didn't know about, that we would never know about.
Yeah.
When Carolyn Halbron really brought May Sarton to light. Who wants to read May Sarton now?
Yeah.
Who reads Carolyn anymore?
Right.
I worry. I went to a benefit for a young woman's organization, let's leave it at that, and the woman who was emceeing, and I paid money for my ticket. I didn't come free. I paid. And the young woman that was emceeing this dinner said, "We're third wavers, and we've this and we've that, and I quote directly, we don't have to listen to the second wave anymore. We know everything they have to say. They were our mothers." And I thought, I'm not anybody's mother, but I think I'm going to find my way out of this. And I was so angry, and I talked to 2 or 3 women of my generation, of our generation, the second wave, and they said, oh yeah, that's the way they are. So I think that there almost is a sense of giving up, to not engage. On the other hand, there are these very young ones that are still in college, and I think they're eager to read and to learn. But I also remember the resentment of never being passed the microphone. Betty loved me, but she never passed the microphone to me.
Oh, I had the same story with Bella.
Yeah, and she loved you very much.
She ran against me to be a co-chair of a platform. It's a whole long story.
Yeah.
But she didn't like my going out of my...
No, and Betty adored me, and she supported my writing, and she would always be looking for a proper husband for me, or boyfriend. But when it came to, you know, she wouldn't pass the microphone, and so I understand that feeling. But it shouldn't be about who gets the microphone. It should be about securing our rights. And when we hear some of the stuff that's being said on the, you know, platforms, presumably of the Republican Party, I'm very worried. I'm very worried about what's
Goes back, this constant
and that
fighting.
and also that nobody is really jumping up and down and saying this person on the Republican Party, I won't mention his name, I can't, because I really don't want to be sued for slander. His views about women are misogynist, and they're just, we need to keep saying that. And does no one care anymore? I don't know.
We keep having to prove it. I mean, we need the solidity of a platform. We are equal to everybody else. It's a constant challenge to be that. It is.
And one gets tired, but you can't stop.
Can't stop it.
You can't stop it.
And you can't stop the relationship with a different generation. I mean, we can't be discarded by young people. We have a lot to offer them.
Or laughed at.
Yeah, we have a lot to offer.
We do.
And they have a lot to offer to us.
And I want to learn from
They've
them.
certainly been liberating.
I want to learn from them, and I'm always proposing to the younger women, let's have an intergenerational
I know that's an
conversation.
interest here. Yeah.
I say it all the time. I want to have an intergenerational feminist dialogue, and maybe it's because I miss the mothers. I miss Bella. I miss Betty.
Well, you're a mother now. It's a pass-along theory.
Yeah. And
You know?
I do.
Yeah.
You know? And I miss the writers like Elizabeth Janeway. You know?
Yeah,
I
she
miss
was
her.
something, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the activist writers like good old Jessie Bernard, who was very elderly when I met her. But she was tough and she was smart and she was an activist.
So instead of this chopping.
Yeah. Because we're a stream, we're a river.
Exactly.
You know, we're a river.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now?
I knew you'd ask me that. Well, the very last public event Marilyn French ever went to before she died was the party for Dancing at the River's Edge, and I was so excited that I had actually finished that book. And on Marilyn's way out of the party, she screamed. She was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
All 4'11" of Marilyn French. She screamed, "Don't be too happy, Alida. What's your next book?" And the truth of it is, I don't know, but I'm likely to circle back to feminism and disability, because I think that that's something that needs to continue to be in the conversation, women and disability. And I don't know if I've got what it takes to do another conversation about feminism, but if I did, what I would love to do is do something in collaboration with a young feminist.
Yeah.
But I refuse to call it a third waiver.
Right, don't do that.
I
right.
won't do that.
Well, Alida Brill, it's a great book. People should please read it. Do you have a website?
I do. It's very simple. It's alidabrill.com, www.alidabrill.com.
Thank you so much.
Oh, Ronnie, good to be with you.
Yeah. If there are any people you'd like to hear or topics you'd like us to explore, please let me know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016. Or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you, and thank you.